My wife and I always wanted to hike Mount Fuji, so we finally went ahead and did it. The thing is, we had heard many horror stories about there being massive amounts of tourists and long lines on the trails, and we wanted to avoid that at all costs. That is why we made the decision to hike Mount Fuji's longest, most difficult, and least popular trail, Gotemba. That's right. When hiking Mount Fuji, there are actually 4 different trails for you to consider. Yoshida Trail, the most popular and the shortest of the Mount Fuji trails. It's great for beginners and has the most rest stops along the way, providing weary travelers with an array of amenities. The ascent time is a reasonable 5 to 7 hours on average. The downside? This is the trail that most people decide to hike, and for that reason, it can get so crowded that it could feel more like waiting in line than hiking, or so I'm told. Then, there's Fuji no Miya Trail, which is the second most popular, takes 4 to 7 hours to hike, and Subashiri Trail, which is the third most popular and takes 6 to 8 hours to ascend. But that's right. We decided to cowboy up and go with everyone's most feared trail with the fewest rest stops, known only as Gotemba. The plus side? It's very peaceful, quiet, challenging, and there are no crowds of people to wait behind on the way up. They say that this trail takes 7 to 10 hours to hike, but be warned, it took my wife and I roughly 9 hours to hike this beast. And we're fit rascals that were going fast compared to everyone around us. Based off our experience, I think it would be a bit more accurate to say this trail might take you, let's say 8.5 to 11 hours to hike. The journey began with my wife and I hitching a cab to the beginning of the Gotemba Trail. We decided the first order of business would be to grab some hiking sticks. Inside the shop, they sell a variety of hiking delights to prepare you for the battle ahead. But the only thing that was on our shopping list at this particular moment was getting some of these awesome hiking sticks that you can get branded at various different stations along the way up. It's sort of like collecting badges along your journey, and I'll have you know that it's actually a lot more fun than it sounds. As we started our ascent, let's do it! We discovered that there was a running event taking place and saw tons of people running down the gravelly terrain of Mount Fuji. To our surprise, there was a large crowd of soldiers cheering on the runners and having a great time. As it turns out, Gotemba is home to several military bases and facilities. When hiking Fuji, you meet lots of friendly Japanese hikers, typically giving you a smile, a nod, and exchanging a friendly konnichiwa while descending the trails. As you can see, the trails on Gotemba are pretty much wide open with no crowds to worry about. One of the things that makes it difficult to hike Mount Fuji is the gravelly terrain. Let's just say you definitely don't want to hike this trail wearing Crocs or flip-flops. Instead, recommend those to your enemies for limitless entertainment. The weather and visibility can change pretty fast on these trails. Before we knew it, we found ourselves in Silent Hill. Of course, I wasn't scared, because my wife demonstrated some impressive martial arts abilities, which scared away the evil spirits and, awesome.
So far, we've been at this for about 2 hours. It's getting very foggy. Looks like we're in the middle of Silent Hill. We have these walking sticks, some really cool brands on them for every station that we've been to, which is the one that we started at.
After hiking for a few hours, we decided to take a quick rest and enjoy our lunch of champions, which we picked up at a gourmet establishment known only as Family Mart. We indulged in healthy cuisine such as onigiri, 500 yen charcuterie, protein bars, and all the trappings of modern konbini delicacy. It wasn't long before we caught a glimpse of a vehicle that was used to go up and down Mount Fuji. I was tempted to bribe the driver with our luxury konbini cuisine in exchange for a ride to the summit, but thought better of it, as an interesting landmark came into view. The landmark? None other than Station 6, the very first man-made structure we had encountered thus far since beginning our Gotemba pilgrimage.
We found civilization!
These rest stops you find along the way are pretty basic, but they're definitely something to look forward to. They typically offer food like bread, instant noodles, udon and snacks, and some drinks like water, coffee, and even beer. There are even osusume menu items, or house specialties typically found on Japanese restaurant menus all the way on Mount Fuji. You have to love Japan. While we only stopped briefly at this hut, we made it a point to get our hiking sticks marked with the unique brand of Station 6. You can't help but think about how amazing it is that there are people seasonally living and working on Mount Fuji, making your long hike so much more enjoyable along the way. This rest stop made us so happy, my wife felt the need to start her very own karaoke club on Mount Fuji.
This mountain.
Decently rested, partially deaf from karaoke, and happy to have had access to a bathroom, we decided to continue our epic journey of the mighty Gotemba Trail.
Now I need help to stand up again.
So long, sucker.
No!
We were quite excited when we arrived at Station 7, although it didn't quite have the amenities we were hoping for. That's just how we roll on Gotemba. Pretty sure the rascals hiking Yoshida did this just to rub salt in our wounds. Needless to say, they will not be invited to my birthday. It was at this point that madness started to sink in, and I started a karaoke party of my very own. Then, to our delight, we worked our way up to the next rest stop, and thankfully, this one was actually still standing. If I'm honest, what I remember most about this particular rest stop was the impressive aroma of the bathroom. But I'll tell you what, I sure am glad that the bathrooms on Mount Fuji are even a thing. Trust me, after hours of hiking, I was glad even to see this bathroom. After a short break, we resumed our hike in hot pursuit of our Gotemba accommodations. We arranged to stay the night at a station not so far from the top of Mount Fuji. The reasoning behind this is, it gives you a chance to sleep a bit before hiking to the top of Mount Fuji. What was important right now was to get to our accommodations ASAP, because if we arrived too late, they would cancel our reservation. The sun was going down and the clock was ticking fast. Then at last, we made it on time to our Mount Fuji hotel for the evening. After spending the whole day hiking steep gravelly terrain, we were really ready for some food, rest, and a celebratory beer. Now, these accommodations are not for everybody. It's quite a bit like a hostel, but one where people are crammed not only above and below you, but sometimes right next to you. Just think about how amazing it is that there are actually beds available on Mount Fuji. Food, bathrooms, and shelter many hours up Mount Fuji's most difficult trail. It is truly just amazing. And by the way, even in mountain huts, Japan's shoes-off game is strong. At last, it was time for dinner. The tantalizing smell of Japanese curry and hot rice filled the air. We were ready to enjoy a victory meal with our fellow mountaineers. There were even free refills on the curry. We were happy campers. Finally, we started to prepare for bed. Thankfully, they provided some outside slippers so folks could make a trip to the loo without having to lace their boots back on all over again. It's also a good thing we brought plenty of coins, because every trip to the bathroom was about 300 yen, or close to $2 at the time of this recording. We were in bed by about 9:30 p.m., and then after quite possibly the worst sleep of my life, we were geared back up and back on the trails by 3 a.m. for the final ascent. No breakfast at the hut for us. Now, I should probably explain why I got such horrible sleep. You might think it was because of all the snoring around me. That probably would have been a factor, but thankfully I was wearing earplugs, so that wasn't really an issue. It had to do with my body's ability to handle the oxygen levels at high altitude. While I was awake, I simply took nice deep breaths and did Wim Hof breathing. As a result, I didn't really have too many issues. But when I would drift off to sleep, my body didn't know how to do that automatically, so I would wake up literally gasping for air over and over all throughout the night. It was not awesome, but we also didn't really expect to sleep so much anyway, so we brushed it off, put on our headlamps, and went about our merry way Gotemba style. This last stretch of the Gotemba Trail was possibly the most difficult of all because of the steep, uneven terrain, darkness, cold weather, and shortness of breath courtesy of the high elevation. Thankfully, there were still no lines to wait in. When people ahead of us sensed that they were slowing us down, they kindly moved to the side and let us pass. Finally, all of our hard work paid off as we neared the end of the Gotemba Trail of what we hoped would be a beautiful view of the sunrise. And beautiful it truly was. We felt very lucky to have the honor of hiking Mount Fuji and getting some really great exercise along the way. On top of that, we were blessed to have good clarity and nice weather when we reached the top of the trail. People at the top of Mount Fuji were ecstatic to be there. We saw people blowing bubbles, shouting their wishes from the mountain summit, and of course, taking generous amounts of pictures like me and my wife.
We did it, ladies and gentlemen. It was very difficult. I'm exhausted. We're both exhausted. It's not that cold. It's a little cold.
Yeah, now it's cold.
Look at this nice view.
Next, we just couldn't resist visiting the post office at the top of Mount Fuji and sending a postcard to my wife's family in Brazil.
You can send a postcard from the peak of Fujisan to anybody in the world. We're gonna send one to our Brazilian family.
Yeah.
The top of Fuji is actually a lot of fun and a nice reward for all your hard work. It's like a small village up there, and you see a lot of people because all the trails end up there, of course. There's bathrooms, tons of shops, more places to get branding on your hiking sticks, small restaurants, there's even vending machines. Japanese hospitality is truly something to behold. When I hiked to the top of Half Dome in Yosemite, There weren't any shops. All that happened was a bird pooed on my head.
This is incredible!
It was awesome, except not at all. After enjoying the trappings of victory, hiking to the highest point of Fuji, and visiting all of the nooks and crannies of this mountainous village, we decided it was time to begin our descent. Little did we know that the way down would become very challenging and unpleasant indeed. Things started off great. We were making good time heading back down the Gotemba Trail, and we exchanged konnichiwas with many friendly Japanese hikers on the way down. What really struck us was the large amount of elderly Japanese hikers who were casually hiking Mount Fuji's most difficult trail. This trail is difficult for many people in their prime, so to see Japanese senior citizens take on Fuji's baddest trail with a smile on their faces no less was truly inspiring. My wife and I realized we wanted to be badasses just like them when we grew up. Suddenly, the weather started to take a turn for the worse, and we found ourselves in Silent Hill once more. That's when it started to rain at full blast for the next 3 hours straight. And believe me, we were not prepared for rain this heavy nor this relentless.
Yeah, you Gandalf and meu marido Gandalf.
Shall not pass.
It didn't help that Gotemba Trail had absolutely no cover from the rain. We felt every drop and the inside of our boots filled with water as we sprinted down the mountain while quickly putting our cameras away. We finally made it to the bottom of the trail, completely drenched and exhausted from running hours as fast as we could down a volcano through the rain. However, we couldn't celebrate just yet because no taxi cab driver in their right mind would pick up 2 soaking wet customers like us, even after our Gotembian victory. We had a spare change of clothes that we were able to change into on the sly, and to our tremendous relief, a cab driver welcomed us into his car and took us back to our hotel. We lived to tell the tale. So you might be wondering if I would recommend hiking up Gotemba Trail. If you like a great challenge and don't want to deal with a ton of hikers along the way, I think it's a great option. My wife and I plan to go and try some of the other trails in the coming years, and it's great to know that we've already experienced the most difficult one. One thing we will definitely want to do on future visits though is improve our waterproof game. When things get really rainy and windy, a poncho just does not cut it. I just want to say thank you so much everybody for watching, and here's one last view of beautiful Fuji-san from the road.